I want to sidetrack a little bit and talk about, because you brought it up while during your story, your career. So you are a chemical engineer, yes?
Yes, yes.
All right. So at least for me, I'm speaking for myself. I don't know a lot of chemical engineers.
Well,
so,
hey.
so how did you? You can quickly say, you don't have to give your whole life story,
Mhm.
but how did you get to that position or that career, I should say?
Okay, well, I grew up in Jamaica, and
Mm-hmm.
I was I was a big nerd.
Nerd, bookworm.
Greek, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
This is my
me too.
cool phase of life. So believe it or not. So yeah, I love the sciences, love chemistry, biology, and at that time I wanted to be a doctor. So and I was struggling. I'm from like deep rural Jamaica in a small village called Wallingford in St. Mary. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember after high school, I was working, I left at 16. I was working at a factory and doing A levels on the side. So, if you're familiar with British education, we do A levels to go to
Mm-hmm.
university. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my aunts was like, why don't you do the SATs? Because she's like, maybe you'll get a scholarship because you're broke. And
You're
you,
broke.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, those were 16 to 18 were rough years of my life, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
working at a factory. I would have liked to be going to school full time, but I could afford it. So I'm working and trying to, and I remember using the last amount of money I had, emptying my bank account to pay for the SATs. So
Wow.
that's probably 30 US. So,
Yeah, but
so
still, if it's when it's everything you have, it's a hard decision.
yeah,
It really is.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I paid for the exam, but you had to send off a package, and my aunt had to end up paying for that for me. But, anyways, so I did that. I got a scholarship. So I was gonna go do chemistry, but then I found out that chemical engineers, because you have to do a bachelor's degree first. I'm like, I'm getting a free degree, so I was supposed to do chemistry because that was my passion. But I found out that chemical engineers make 5,000, about 60,000 US dollars a year when they graduate.
Right
And so I
out.
was like, well, yeah, right out of college. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to do engineering instead because you can do chemistry
Right.
and money.
Right.
So, of course, at that time, I didn't realize taxes. So
Oh,
when I
so you thought you were
graduated,
getting a full
yeah, that good 5 grand
60,000?
a month.
Nah, nah. You ever heard of Uncle Sam?
America is a America is a scam, man.
They're like,
So
oh, that's cute. That's
So
funny.
yeah. So when I graduated, I got to, I was like, let me work for 2 years before going to med school. I did the MCAT, everything. But I was just tired of being broke and struggling and just life being so hard. I'm like, I want to be able to go to like Red Lobster and, it's not like
Live a
saving for a
little.
year.
Right, right.
Right? So I remember I got a job offer in Texas. I went to school in Florida. It was like 50, I got offered $57,000 a year and like a 5,000 sign on bonus. So, I hit my 60,000 and taxes were a surprise. So that's when I realized taxes, like my first
Mm.
paycheck. But yeah, so I did that and I realized I like it. And so I continued, went back and did a master's in business because I was like, I don't want to struggle, I'm good at science, but it's a lot of work. And I was just
Hmm.
like, I want to be in like my lazy phase. I don't want to be spending all night studying, for
Got it.
chemistry exams. So,
Yeah.
or medicine. So I ended up, sticking with chemical engineering. And yeah, so now my focus mostly is on process safety. So when you hear about things blowing up, so my job is to basically prevent that from happening. So
Wow.
basically risk management and preventing
Okay.
like big, large scale industry accidents. So that's what I do for a living.
Wow. Okay. So that's pretty damn fucking important.
All right. Yeah. And
Oh, that's
right.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said obviously you love your job. You like what you do. Was there, apart from being a chemical engineer, was there anything as a child that you had a dream of doing, or was that you
Yeah.
just knew that was it? Obviously, you said it was for the money,
No.
but
Yeah.
if it
No, I
wasn't, if
wanted to be a doctor, actually.
really,
I wanted
okay,
to be a psychiatrist or a oncologist. So growing
hmm
up, that's really what I wanted to do. But as I said, I did the MCAT, but in college, although I had scholarships and I worked part time, I was still broke. And at that time, foreigners, because I was still a foreign F1 visa student,
Hmm.
you had to, but you could only go to private medical schools. So, like Florida State, I could go there, because like the public medical schools are heavily subsidized by the government, which
Right.
foreigners aren't entitled to.
Right.
So I wasn't offered a scholarship for medical school, and I would basically needed to find someone to co-sign on 50,000 US dollars a year for me to pay for school.
Mm,
So that's kind of, and I think that was a big part of why I didn't continue because I didn't have family in the US, and you're basically asking somebody to co-sign on a mortgage at
yeah.
200, basically a two
To
hundred
take a
thousand dollar
risk. Right.
loan,
Hmm.
and I wasn't comfortable with that. But I think mostly I was just tired of just being the broke
Yeah.
person. And
Yeah.
I just felt like I wanted to walk into a phase where everything wasn't about struggle, where I could think of buying a house, I could help out my family in Jamaica, you
Hmm.
know. And I know if I
Yeah.
continue with medicine, it probably would take another 6, 7 years before I could be comfortable.
Got you. So, you just said you didn't have any family in America. So what I'm getting is you legit were like just out there, like by yourself.
Yes.
Wow. Because
Yeah.
that reminds me of my mom. So my mom moved to America and she left me and my two sisters, in Jamaica. And she kind of just came up here and said, "I'm gonna figure it out." So yeah, I
Yeah.
respect that. I respect that. How was
Yeah.
it? How was it like coming to America that changed? Because we grew up in Jamaica. We know what Jamaica is like. It's very different from
Exactly.
America. So how was that change when you came up here?
So it was more than expected. So
Hmm.
firstly, so I didn't know. So the school that gave me a scholarship was a HBCU. So I didn't know what that meant. So I
Historical Black
got to
College.
so I
No
got to
idea.
call, so I got to
Uh-huh.
FAMU, what? You
Hmm.
know, and I was like, I thought there were white people in America. 'Cause I'm
Oh, because
like,
you came and just saw black people.
yes. I was like, because it was
You're like, where the white people at? That's
right. So
hilarious.
yeah.
That's such a unique experience. Can you imagine coming to America and see no white people?
Right? So that was weird because, I came straight from Jamaica to FAMU campus in Tallahassee, Florida,
Hmm.
all blacks.
Uh,
So there was just, although obviously I'm a native English speaker, I speak the Queen's English,
right.
whatever. But
Still different. Right.
but but people had a hard time understanding what I was saying.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm like, I got a one in CXC English, like,
Right. I know this is proper. Like this is actual English.